first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head to forms.google.com and click this blank form. It's going to create a new form for me. And here is where I will start customizing this form for the student in my classroom. I like to make a form for each student. So I'm going to change the name to be Johnny's IEP data. And if I click over here, that'll update the name of my form as well. The other thing I like to do in my classroom is everything is color coded. So if you click on this paint palette, it will open this up. Let's say Johnny's color in my classroom is green. I'm going to click green. That way there is no mistaking it when I get to this page. This is Johnny's. It's green. I know Johnny has all the green stuff in my classroom. The first thing I always do is I like to create a lot of sections in my form. It makes it easier to navigate when we are inputting data. So the first thing I ask is, what data are you inputting? And I make this a drop down so myself or any paraprofessionals who are entering data can navigate straight to that section and input data just for those goals. And then I'll show you how we can customize that in just a little bit. So we'll just get started here. Let's say Johnny has an IEP goal for letter ID. He has another one for number ID. And then he'll have one for on-task behavior. And I always like to include an ABC data form, ABC data, and a workstation data. So I can collect those in my classroom as well. I know many of your students will have more goals than this. This is just to get us started to kind of look at that. So the next thing I do is I use this equal sign and we'll add a new section to our form. And I'm going to create a section for each one of these things that I said in the drop down. So the first one we're going to do is letter ID. So we're going to type up here. I like to put this at the top so once we navigate to that section in our form later, we'll know we are in the right place. This plus sign will add a question to your form. The first question I always like to ask is for the date. I want to be able to review how often we're taking data. I also want to see, sometimes we might be slacking on taking data for one of the goals. So that's something that I can review and say, oh, we need to make sure we're taking data for, let's say, his number ID goal. All right, so once that's there, I'm going to add another question. Let's say Johnny's working on learning the letters in his name right now. So I'm going to just put letters will be my question. You can name it whatever you want. And then I like to use this multiple choice grid when I'm looking at accuracy. So we're working on the letters in his name. We have J, O, H, N, and Y. And then just a simple, did he get it correct or was it incorrect? And then when I look at that on my data, I'll be able to see how often he's getting letters correct and incorrect. We'll come back to that and look at it in a little bit. The other thing that sometimes I like to look at is the prompt level that the student needs. So I can add another question to look at that. And I like to use checkboxes because you may need more than one prompt during a lesson. So prompts needed. And then for sake of brevity here, I'm just going to put a few prompts. I know that there are so many more on the prompt hierarchy. Okay, and then that way we can mark prompts as they're needed. So this is the information that I want for letter ID. This section is done. I will create another section and I'm going to be looking at number ID, and this information will look pretty similar to the last one. So we might do numbers, and then I would like to use the same one. I like that multiple choice grid. Let's say he's working on numbers 0 through 5. And then I just like to know if he knows it or he doesn't know it. I would also like to know if he needs any prompts. So I'll create that checkbox again because we may need more than one. All right, and that section is now done. The next thing that Johnny's working on in our classroom is on-task behavior. And now this one might look a little bit different. Another thing I think I forgot to mention this is in this description, sometimes I'll just copy and paste my students' IEP goals. So that way when we navigate here, my paras can look at what the goal is supposed to be and we can collect data and compare it to the goal. So this one for on-task behavior, let's say we're looking to get Johnny on task for 10 minutes. So I'm going to put time on task here. And my favorite one for tracking duration is using a linear scale. So 1 to, let's change that to 10 since we're working on 10 minutes on task, and just putting in a quick label 1 to 10. We'll label that on our graph. Again, this is something I probably want to know what kinds of prompts he needed. So I will just add in that prompt hierarchy, and I forgot the date. So you know what? When you make a mistake, it's super easy to go back, hit that plus sign again, and then just say date, and it's ready to go. And I do love how like this is so intuitive that when I type the word date in, it just populates the state. So awesome. Anyways, prompts needed. He might need a full physical, a partial physical, gesture. He might be independent. All right. So those are the IEP goals that Johnny's working on. See, I forgot for number ID, I forgot the date too. So we're going to put that in right there. All right. The other two that I like to include are things that I have for every student: ABC data and workstation data. So creating another section for those students or for those data inputs. So to do an ABC data, these are going to be any outlying data behaviors that we see in the classroom. So I always like to have the date for this. I also like to have the time. Sometimes I'll do start time and end time when I know that students will have longer duration behaviors. But if I put the time in there, that's usually a good start. And then I just type in antecedent. And then I like to use a short answer. And this para, actually, yeah, short answer. And then they can just type in what happened right before. If your paraprofessionals need more information there, you might want to say antecedent, and you can type in something like what happened before the behavior. And then they just have some more information as they're filling that out. So then the behavior, you can do a short answer or a paragraph. If you have some big behaviors, you may want a paragraph. The last thing you'll want to add is the consequence, and do that as a paragraph or a short answer, and that can be entered in. Sometimes I also like to do the setting, so I'll add that in as another thing, and you can do checkboxes. So it could be at arrival time, it could be at breakfast, could have been at recess or reading. So all those things would be important information. You can start tracking what the behavior, when the behavior is occurring. Anyways, that's the gist of that ABC data. And then I'll create a new section for my workstation data. I'm going to, for our workstation data, I want to know the date. And then I'll often ask how many tasks. And that's something I like to do on that linear scale. 1 to 5 seems appropriate in my classroom. You may want more. Add that next question, task 1, and just a quick short answer. So my paras can type in like matching or addition or whatever skill it is they're working on. And this is where I'm going to create a super quick task analysis, again using that multiple choice grid. So step 1 is that the student matches an icon. Step 2 is placing the work on the desk. Step 3 would be completing the task. And step 4 is moving task to all done box. And then again, you're just going to track those prompt levels. So full physical, partial physical, gesture, independent. All right. And then what I like to do, since I'm going to be doing up to 5 tasks, I just copy this. I'm going to rename this task 2 and drag it down underneath here. And now it's asking me if I want that. I don't want that. So I'm going to change that to a text. All right. Actually, I think you can just delete that. I knew you could. Task 2, and then just duplicate that task analysis for task 2, and you'll be able to see the progress your student makes. So I'm going to keep doing that till I get to 5, task 3, and duplicate to task 4, duplicate, and one more for 5, just because sometimes my students will do up to 5 tasks. If yours are only doing 3 in a 3-drawer system, then you can stop at 3. Task 5 and task analysis. Another thing that I use in my classroom, you may or may not, is an after my students get a reinforcer. So retrieve and we teach them that once they're done with their work, they can go grab what they need. So I track the prompt level needed to do that task as well. Let's fix that spelling. Gesture. Okay, once I have all of the forms created that I want to use for my data collection, I'm going to come all the way back up here to the top and see how it says after section 1, continue to the next section. Hang on, I did that incorrectly. You're going to hit these 3 dots. No, you're not. You're going to hit these 3 dots and you're going to hit go to section based on answer. So that's going to allow you to customize where this jumps to. So when I want my letter ID one, the nice thing about putting those headings in is that they're right here. So I can click, that's going to go to the letter ID page. When we do number ID, that's going to number ID. When we do on task behavior, ABC, and workstation. So that will jump to the different sections in my form. One more thing you need to change before you can get started is down here at the bottom where it says after section, I want it to submit that form. I want to be done with that data. I want it to go in. So all of these should be changed to submit form. And one more. And that will automatically submit because it's the last one and there's nowhere else it can go. So once all of that is prepared for your student, I like to click on this eyeball right here and that will show you what the data sheet looks like. You can also add a collaborator to share this with your paraprofessionals or get a pre-filled link, whatever works for you. I'm going to show you a shortcut a little bit later that may work for you. But I hit this eyeball and let's look at what this data sheet looks like now. So we need to choose which goal we're working on. So let's say we did a number ID lesson with Johnny today. We're going to hit next. For the date, if you click today, it autofills it for you, which is quite nice. And then I can just go through and we reviewed numbers today. He knew 0 and 1 and did not know the rest. And let's say we did some gestural prompting with him. Another thing you may want to add in, like, is this receptive or expressive? Those kinds of things you may want to think about while you're developing your forms. Then I hit submit and I'm done with that data. It's been input. I can even submit another response. Let's say later we worked on his on-task behavior and he was on task for 3 minutes with a partial physical prompt. Submit that and we have some new data. I'm going to add just one more for that number ID data so we can look at what that looks like on our form in just a second. Let's say he learned 2 the next day and he needed a gestural prompt. Perfect. So I'm going to go back to Johnny's data sheet and you can see now that we've got some responses that have come in on our sheet. I like to look at this summary. It gives me some really good information, and when I'm doing it for just one student, I get a ton of information. So you can see that I've input data for 2 different dates for Johnny's number ID, and anything in blue is how many times he got it correct, and anything red is when he got it incorrect. So you can see that he's mastered 0 and 1, 2 is emerging, and 3, 4, and 5 are numbers that we still need to work on. And you can see the gestural prompt that he needed there. Same for that on-task behavior. You can see right now for 3 minutes, he can stay on task 100% of the time. As you get more data, those numbers will change, and all of these do not have responses yet. But as you add more information, you will get so much more information on your graphs. If you have any questions, please email me at erin@yououghtoknow.com, and I will talk with you soon.